$2,300. That's how much more the average American household could be paying every year. At the exact same time, the power of your U.S. passport, well, it's hit a historic low, falling to 12th place globally. Now, you might think these two things are totally unrelated, but they're not. In fact, they are directly connected, and today we're going to uncover that hidden link between trade policy, your wallet, and America's standing on the world stage.
Okay, let's start with the thing that hits closest to home: your money. A study from the Yale Budget Lab, and it's a big one, found that recent tariffs could cost the average U.S. household an extra $2,300 every single year. We're talking about a hidden tax on basically everything, from the food you buy to the phone you're probably holding right now.
So, while prices were climbing back home, something else was falling, and falling fast: the power of an American passport. As of October 2025, it dropped all the way down to 12th place in the global rankings. That's a historic low, folks. What does it mean? Well, it means more paperwork, more visa hassles, and frankly, just less freedom for Americans to move around the world.
So, how in the world does a trade policy end up making your passport weaker? It feels like a stretch, right? But I promise you, there's a straight line connecting these two events. And in this explainer, we are going to follow that line, step by step, and see exactly how these big economic decisions create ripples that eventually reach all of us.
So, let's get right into it. To understand how we get from tariffs to a less powerful passport, we have to start with the most basic question of all: who actually pays for a tariff? You know, the political soundbites always say other countries are footing the bill, but the economic reality, well, that tells a very, very different story.
And here it is, the key thing you have to understand. When the U.S. puts a tariff on, say, goods from another country, it is not that foreign company that pays the tax. Nope. It's the American company, the importer, that has to write a check to U.S. Customs. And as you can probably guess, that cost doesn't just vanish into thin air. It has a way of trickling down.
And look, the numbers here really speak for themselves. The U.S. Treasury collected over $158 billion from these tariffs. But that wasn't free money. You see it reflected right here. Producer prices, what businesses pay for things, jumped 0.9% in a single month. And the St. Louis Fed even calculated that tariffs alone were directly responsible for a half-point hike in inflation. Bottom line, the cost of those tariffs got passed right on to us, the American consumers.
So this brings up a really interesting thought experiment. If we stopped calling them tariffs and started calling them what they effectively are, a national sales tax on imported goods, would you feel differently about them? I'm genuinely curious to know what you think. Drop a comment below.
But the impact of these tariffs didn't stop at the U.S. border. Not even close. They sent shockwaves to America's relationships with some of its closest partners, creating a whole new layer of global tension. One of the most glaring examples of this was with India. In August of 2025, the U.S. hit India with a 25% tariff, and then, just a few weeks later, they doubled it to 50%. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that 50% rate is higher than the tariff rate imposed on Syria. But here's where the story gets more complicated. You see, while sectors like textiles and auto parts were getting hammered, other key areas were strategically left untouched. The biggest one? Pharmaceuticals. And it makes sense, right? India supplies nearly half of all generic drugs in the U.S. A tariff on those would have sent American healthcare costs into the stratosphere.
And this trade dispute wasn't just happening with India. It was a global fire. The European Union hit back, slapping tariffs on iconic American products like bourbon and motorcycles. And Canada, our biggest trading partner, retaliated with tariffs on $28 billion of U.S. goods. A full-blown trade war was officially on.
All of this brings us to a really fundamental question about foreign policy. Are tariffs a smart way to get what you want on the world stage, or do they end up doing more harm than good by pushing away the very countries you need on your side? Let me know what you think down in the comments.
So, while all the headlines were focused on the economics and the diplomacy of this trade war, something else was happening. Something a bit quieter, but much more personal. And this is the point where trade wars started to become travel wars.
And the fall was stunningly fast. In 2024, the U.S. passport was sitting pretty at number 7 in the world. By July of the next year, it had already slipped to 10th. And then by October, it fell completely out of the top 10 for the first time in 20 years, landing at a dismal 12th place. I mean, in just about a year, the U.S. passport lost a serious amount of its global power.
So what does a drop like this actually mean for you, the average American traveler? It means less freedom and more bureaucracy. A passport holder from Singapore, which is number 1, can walk into 193 countries without a visa.
An American? Only 180. That's not just a number. That has real-world consequences, like Brazil bringing back visa requirements for Americans, or China expanding its visa-free travel list and pointedly leaving the U.S. off of it.
And these consequences, they go so much deeper than just your vacation plans. These tariff policies have actually helped accelerate a much larger, more significant shift in the global economic order. We're seeing countries around the world actively start to build financial systems where the U.S. is just less important.
For decades, the U.S. dollar has been the undisputed king of the global economy. That's given America incredible power. But that crown is starting to slip. The dollar's share of global reserves has dropped from over 70% back in 1999 to just 59% today. This trend is called De-Dollarization, and believe me, it has huge implications for America's role in the world.
And you can see this pivot happening everywhere. China's massive Belt and Road Initiative is pulling countries into its economic orbit. Its trade with Russia is now almost entirely settled in their own currencies. No dollars needed. And get this, even a longtime U.S. partner like Saudi Arabia is joining projects to create payment systems that bypass the dollar entirely.
The U.S. dollar's dominance has been a bedrock of American power for generations. But as the rest of the world finds ways to trade without it, we have to ask a really tough question. Can the dollar stay king when the game itself is changing? I'm curious what you think. Let me know in the comments.
You know, to really grasp this complex dance of money, power, and politics that's happening right now, we have to look beyond the daily headlines. We need to dig deeper into the huge historical and economic forces that are shaping our world.
And for anyone who wants to really go deep on this stuff, I can't recommend audiobooks like Currency Wars or The Changing World Order enough. They provide exactly the kind of context and deep analysis you need. And with a service like Audible, you can listen and learn while you're driving, working out, pretty much anytime, anywhere.
Okay, now that we've seen all the pieces, let's just quickly recap that chain of events. It all starts with the tariffs. That leads directly to higher prices at home, inflation. That, in turn, makes our allies angry, so they retaliate and start looking for other trading partners. And the final result? A slow erosion of American influence and soft power, a decline you can literally measure by the number of countries that no longer let you in without a visa.
So yes, the tariffs brought in over $158 billion in revenue, but the true cost? Well, that can't be measured in dollars and cents. It was a price we paid in lost trust, in damaged alliances, and in a weaker position on the world stage. In the end, we taxed ourselves, and we traded a piece of our global power for politics.
And that brings us to the final, ultimate question. Was it all worth it? When you really weigh the short-term cash against the long-term costs, from higher prices at the store to a weaker passport in your hand, did the benefits of these tariffs actually outweigh the drawbacks? I would love to hear your final take in the comments. And hey, if you found this breakdown valuable, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the issues shaping our world.